My name is Alina Roberts. I'm 29 years old, and until last year, I believed I understood exactly how the world worked. Work hard, stay honest, protect your credit, build your future brick by brick. I grew up in a modest neighborhood outside Columbus, Ohio, in a family that constantly talked about sticking together. My father ran a small auto repair shop that barely survived month to month, and my mother worked part-time at a daycare. Money was always tight, but I told myself that struggle builds character. I was the first in my family to graduate college. I worked 2 jobs, graduated with honors in finance, and landed a stable position as a loan officer at a regional bank. Ironically, I helped people avoid debt traps every single day. I rented a small apartment, drove a used Honda, and carefully built my credit score into the high 700s. My dream was simple: buy my own condo before I turned 30. Everything was finally aligning until the afternoon that shattered everything. It was a Wednesday, slow and uneventful, when I received a notification on my phone. Credit alert, new inquiry detected. I frowned. I hadn't applied for anything. At first, I assumed it was a mistake, maybe a marketing pre-approval, but something felt wrong. I logged into my credit monitoring app and my stomach dropped. There it was, a personal loan account opened 3 months earlier for $48,600. My name, my social security number, my address listed correctly. My hands started shaking so badly I had to sit down. I knew this wasn't a scam from some stranger across the country. The listed contact email attached to the loan was one I recognized instantly, an old family email my parents used years ago. I felt a wave of nausea roll through me. I called the bank listed on the account, forcing my voice to stay steady. After verifying my identity, the representative confirmed the details. The loan had been approved online, funds transferred to a checking account ending in numbers I didn't recognize, but the cosigner section was blank. No cosigner, just me, fully responsible. My chest tightened as the reality settled in. Someone hadn't just tried to use my name, they had successfully used it, and the first payment had already been missed. My credit score had dropped nearly 90 points overnight. I left work early that day, barely remembering the drive home. I sat in my apartment, staring at the wall, replaying possibilities. A data breach, identity theft, but deep down, a heavier truth was forming. My parents had asked me for my social security number 6 months ago for insurance paperwork. I hadn't questioned it. Why would I? They were my parents. The more I thought about it, the more small red flags surfaced. My mom casually asking about my salary, my dad complaining about business debts, their sudden new SUV they claimed was a good deal. My heart pounded as denial wrestled with logic. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't. That night, I called my mother. My voice trembled as I asked her directly if she knew anything about a loan in my name. There was a pause, too long. Then she said softly, "We were going to tell you." Those 6 words felt like a knife sliding slowly into my back. She tried to explain, said Dad's shop was failing, said they were drowning in debt, said the bank wouldn't approve them, said they were desperate. Desperate enough to forge my identity? Desperate enough to gamble my future without asking? I couldn't even process her justification. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. That night, sleep never came. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying possibilities. A data breach? Identity theft? But deep down, a heavier truth was forming. My parents had asked me for my social security number 6 months ago for insurance paperwork. I hadn't questioned it. Why would I? They were my parents. The more I thought about it, the more small red flags surfaced. My mom casually asking about my salary, my dad complaining about business debts, their sudden new SUV they claimed was a good deal. My heart pounded as denial wrestled with logic. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't. That night, I called my mother. My voice trembled as I asked her directly if she knew anything about a loan in my name. There was a pause, too long. Then she said softly, "We were going to tell you." Those 6 words felt like a knife sliding slowly into my back. She tried to explain, said Dad's shop was failing, said they were drowning in debt, said the bank wouldn't approve them, said they were desperate. Desperate enough to forge my identity? Desperate enough to gamble my future without asking? The next morning, I drove straight to my parents' house, a small brick home I once considered my safe place. The curtains were drawn, even though it was nearly noon. My father opened the door, surprise flashing across his face before quickly turning into something defensive. I walked in without waiting to be invited. My mother was sitting at the kitchen table, a stack of unopened bills spread in front of her like evidence in a trial. I placed printed copies of the loan documents on the table. "You put a $48,600 loan in my name," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Silence filled the room. Finally, my father spoke. We had no choice. No choice, as if fraud was a weather condition that just happened to them. He explained the repair shop had been bleeding money for 2 years. Suppliers demanded payment. Credit cards were maxed. They had tried everything. Banks rejected them, so they used my information to apply online, knowing my credit would secure approval instantly. They promised themselves they'd repay it before I ever noticed, but 3 months had passed. The first payments were missed. Late fees were stacking. I felt anger, but beneath it was heartbreak. They hadn't just made a bad decision, they'd calculated it. They'd weighed my trust against their survival and chosen themselves. I asked why they didn't ask me. My mother's response stunned me. "You would have said no." She wasn't wrong. I would have said no to risking my entire financial future. That's what hurt the most. They knew it, so they eliminated my ability to choose. I told them what this meant legally: identity theft, fraud, potential felony charges. My father's face went pale. "You wouldn't do that to us," he said quietly. The guilt tactic, the reminder of family loyalty, the invisible chain they hoped would hold me in place. For days, I lived in emotional chaos. At work, I processed other people's loan applications while secretly drowning in my own crisis. If I reported the fraud, my parents could face criminal charges. If I didn't, I'd be responsible for nearly $50,000 plus interest. I consulted a lawyer who confirmed what I already knew. The only way to remove liability was to formally dispute the loan and file a police report. There was no middle ground. I gave my parents one final chance. I told them to refinance legitimately within 2 weeks, or I would proceed legally. They promised they would. 2 weeks passed, nothing changed. The second payment was missed. My credit dropped further. That was the moment something inside me hardened. Love does not mean sacrificing your future for someone else's deception. I went to the police station with shaking hands and filed the report. Saying my parents' names out loud felt surreal. I cried in my car afterward, not because I regretted it, but because I realized the version of my family I believed in no longer existed. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Detectives contacted my parents within days. Panic flooded their house. My mother called me repeatedly, leaving voicemails filled with tears and accusations. "How could you destroy us like this?" she sobbed. But they had destroyed trust long before I stepped into a police station. Eventually, faced with evidence and legal consequences, my parents agreed to a plea arrangement. They admitted to fraud, avoided jail time due to lack of prior record, but were placed on probation and ordered to repay the debt under court supervision. The loan was officially removed from my credit report after months of paperwork and disputes. My credit score slowly began recovering, but healing financially was easier than healing emotionally. Family gatherings stopped. Relatives took sides. Some said I should have handled it privately. Others quietly admitted I did the right thing. Therapy became my lifeline. I had to confront the uncomfortable truth that boundaries are not betrayals, they are protection. Over time, I rebuilt my savings. I postponed my condo purchase by a year, but eventually I signed the papers on a small one-bedroom unit overlooking the river. The day I received the keys, I stood alone in the empty living room and felt something stronger than anger: freedom. I wasn't responsible for my parents' choices. I wasn't obligated to carry their consequences. Months later, my father sent me a short letter. Not an excuse, not a justification, just an apology. It didn't erase what happened, but it acknowledged it. I don't know what our relationship will look like in the future. Trust, once broken at that level, doesn't fully return. But I learned something powerful through the wreckage. Protecting yourself doesn't make you cruel. It makes you wise. Family can love you and still harm you. Desperation can turn good intentions into unforgivable actions. And silence only enables betrayal to grow. If you're watching this and something similar is happening to you, check your credit. Ask hard questions. Don't ignore red flags just because they wear familiar faces. I lost a version of my family that day, but I gained something else: self-respect, financial control, and the courage to choose my future over guilt. And sometimes that's the only choice that truly saves you.